I'm going to ask you a couple questions. Do you believe Jesus is the Christ? You believe he's the Son of the living God?
Yes.
Do you accept him as your personal Lord and Savior?
Yes.
All right, man, I'm going to baptize you in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, okay? For the forgiveness of all your sins and the gift of the Holy Spirit. Now, hold your nose if you want to. You're going backwards.
Well, I want to go over and revisit something real quick because I do this every now and then. You've seen a major starting point in two areas tonight. Jordon, starting point with blue chip, and also getting baptized. So I wanted to just check one more time around the room to see if anyone else wanted to take this opportunity tonight to start their journey. Is there anyone else that would like to start, take that first step? Jordon, I just want to commend you for the big steps you have taken tonight, and what you did in there in the baptism. I can tell you from personal experience of getting sober and going back out and going back to rehab and doing it again, the difference is what you did tonight. Not that I was baptized in between relapsing and going back to rehab, but the difference was the first time I was trying to do it all myself, white knuckling it, and the second time is when I turned, because I had turned my life over. It tells us in the steps to turn our life over to God. I had done that many years ago, but it wasn't until I relapsed and went back out and ended up back in rehab. It was only then that I turned my will over to the care of God, and that's when things change. Okay, so I want to commend you for that, and this you will learn in time. This chip right here, out of all these chips in this box, there's one more important than all those combined, and that's this one right here, the very first one. Because, so you can say, how is the first chip more important than, we've got, who is it, has 24 years? Jason has 24 years. How can day one be more important than 24 years? Because you don't get to get any of these until you get this one. That's why this is the most important one of all the chips out there. So congratulations again, and keep coming back. So tonight we're on step 11, as Dave mentioned. We saw through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and power to carry that out. And in Colossians 3:16, it says, "Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly." While step 10 focuses largely on keeping our thoughts and emotions in check, the next step takes a look at the very foundation. Much of our work in the 12 steps focuses on establishing a sense of spirituality. As most should know, by the time they reach step 11, the foundation of recovery, of course, is one of spiritual growth. Step 11, however, focuses on the daily maintenance of our spirituality and how this maintenance might be achieved. This might cause some to wonder why step 11 is even necessary at all, because to be certain, many of us have began praying and meditating long before we ever reached this point in our recovery. And some of us have prayed only in times of need, while others prayed every single morning upon waking. What makes step 11 so different aren't we simply doing more of the same? In some ways, yes. Especially addicts and alcoholics who struggle with spirituality need not fear this step. By the time you reach step 11, you already know, if you've been working on your steps, by the time you reach step 11, you already know that spirituality is not the same as religion. Everybody know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. There's a huge difference between religion and spirituality. Religion, this is the way I always describe it. Religion is for people that don't want to go to hell. Spirituality is for all of those that don't want to go back to hell. Okay? Thank you. So, I started in preparing for the lesson tonight. I got thinking about, what is spiritual maturity? And when we talk about it a lot, it's covered in our lessons and steps. And so I started breaking it down and came up with some things that are kind of signs of, maybe as I'm going over them, you can kind of gauge where you're at in your spiritual maturity. And as always, when I'm preparing for to speak, I learn. I hope everyone takes something away whenever I speak, but I learn just as much as I hope anybody else does when I do these. I always learn something that I didn't know, and this one, what I will go ahead and throw out there is, we've got a list of 10 things, and some of them I'm pretty good at. Some of them I'm actually too good at, that's almost as bad as not being good at them. And then there's some of them I really still need to work on. So don't feel like you have to have everything all figured out. As we say, we strive for progress and not perfection. So you don't have to have them all down. I can already tell you that I discovered there's a couple, good thing they're kind of towards the end, that I still struggle with. So we all mature physically whether we want to or not, right? But on the other hand, spiritual maturity is not guaranteed. You're going to physically mature whether you do anything or not. Spiritual maturity requires work and effort on our parts to do that. And while you're most likely to encounter the term spiritual maturity within the Christian context, the principles of spiritual maturity can be found in all religions and wisdom traditions. Spiritual maturity may be defined as the gradual process of developing healthy and life-giving ways of relating to oneself, to others, and to your surroundings. Spiritual maturity doesn't just happen. Like I said, it requires attention, time, and effort in order to realize its benefits. So, 10 signs of spiritual maturity in your life. 1, your life is guided by a core set of principles and values. The spiritually mature consciously and carefully chooses to develop life habits consistent with values such as love, compassion, empathy, self-giving, and dignified living. So if you've noticed, you pay a lot more attention to those core sets of values. That's a sign of spiritual maturity. When you genuinely care for others, when you show compassion, that's that spiritual maturity coming through. Second sign, you are slow to hold on to grudges and quick to forgive.
No.
Yeah.
Everybody screeched right there.
Yeah.
One, two.
That was just number 2.
I know. Can't wait.
Number 2 sign of spiritual maturity. You are slow to hold on to grudges and quick to forgive. This one was something that at one time I was not good at. And although I have gotten a lot better, I still have probably some work to do there, but I feel pretty decent where I'm at on that one. Not holding grudges and being quick to forgive. Nelson Mandela once said that resentment is like drinking poison and hoping for the other person to die. And that's, I've heard it described in different ways, but that's a great explanation of what holding on to resentment is. And once you figure it out, I don't know if it happened to you, but it happened to me when you, so you know how it's tearing you up when you hold resentment towards someone, but then when you get some spiritual maturity and you let some of that resentment go, something may happen where somebody still resents you for something, and you can see it and feel it, you know, when they're around you, but they won't let it go, and you kind of feel bad for them because you know that they're eating their self up. It's not bothering you. You know, they're drinking that poison, hoping I'll die, but you kind of feel bad for them, or I did. The spiritually mature take this step seriously, since they are not interested in taking the life of either themselves or others, literally or metaphorically. They just learn to safely release the poison of resentment in order to forgive. The third sign, you care deeply for the less fortunate, marginalized, and the downtrodden. That's a sign of spiritual maturity. When you see other people hurting, it could be from physical pain, it could be mental pain, it could be depression, it could be someone you're helping out in recovery. Especially when you see someone that's where you used to be, and your heart goes out to them, and you just want to help them. That's a sign of spiritual maturity. As we live our hectic lives, it is very easy to tune out the voices of the weak. You know, you see someone, or you hear about someone that's struggling or whatever, and you go, I may see him at the meeting or something and talk to him. So it's kind of easy to walk by them sometimes, but just know that is a sign of spiritual maturity. The spiritually mature person is constantly aware of the needs of the less fortunate and is inspired to take action on their behalf. I had some friends of Dean that they had a son that played ball with one of my sons, and he passed away. And but she had another son, his brother, that was going through some things, and talked to her several times, and man, my heart, went out to her because, she's trying to help her son. She doesn't know what to do. Her heart's breaking. She's done everything she knows to do. Nothing's working. And we had some honest talks, and I can promise you, one of the hardest things you could ever tell a parent or a spouse or a loved one or that has, their significant other, their child, whatever, that's struggling in addiction, one of the hardest things you'll ever have to tell somebody like that is, and I've gone through it with my own, is to tell them until they're ready to help themselves, there's really nothing you can do. And man, that's hard. It's hard to say it to someone, and it's hard to know it of your own. So I was always, here's my number, have him call me, and I do anything I can, and so we text a few times, and I was just honest with him, and thinking about it now, I haven't followed up on that, and that's my fault, and I feel bad for that. But then I never heard back from either one of them because by then I was getting texts from both of them saying, well, what about this? And I'd give them an honest answer, and it'd be like crickets. And a few days go by and I get another, well, what about, here's your answer. Truth. Cricket. So, just, doesn't always work, but just be there and be ready to help others get to where you are. Fourth thing, you maintain your childlike sense of wonder. This one I'm kind of 50-50 on. So there's some things I still have my childlike sense of wonder on. Some things that I get happy that that I find joy in. Like a kid. There's still some things that I have like that, and there's a lot of areas where I need to be more like that. So, because too many of us stop being amazed by life as we grow into responsible adults, right? The older we get, we think, well, that kind of, childish. But hey, if it brings you joy and you're not hurting anyone, be like a child again. The spiritually mature see wonder and beauty in everything they do and experience. Familiarity is not a friend of the spiritually mature. Yeah.
Say that again.
Familiarity is not a friend of the spiritually mature. They see things where others see the boring routine. So, what it's saying is you can get, even when you're doing a good thing, you can get kind of caught in a rut, if you're just, whatever, you're showing up to church every time the doors are open, but, you're in and out, you don't talk to anybody, you're not, really participating, you're just there because you've gotten locked into that routine, and you're just, it becomes a boring routine. So every moment is treated as a gift, one that they are not careful to squander through negativity or ungratefulness. That's what being like a childlike sense of wonder in your spiritual maturity. Number 5, you are wary of the dangers of excess, but you have an abundance mindset. These two things may seem in conflict with each other, but on a closer inspection, you will see that they are not. They do not give from their excess, but from their heart. So, if it's like tithing, is from your earnings, but it should come from your heart instead of just because that's what it says to do in excess from your heart. Number 6, you defer pleasure. That's a sign of spiritual maturity. Spiritually mature people know that anything worth doing requires that you do something you would rather not do now in order to get a result you want later. So you have to put in the time and the work now, a lot of times when you don't feel like it, in order to get what you want later. So like, all these next chips, they don't come on their own either. You have to put in the time and the work now in order to get what you want later. The spiritually mature also have an added layer to this principle. They are able to discern that sometimes we simply don't get what we want, either because the timing is not right or because what we desire may not be good for us in the long run. They know that not all pleasurable things need to be pursued. How many have learned this in your recovery journey? They know that not all pleasurable things need to be pursued, even the seemingly harmless ones. Because even though we may, not be doing that thing that got us in recovery, we still have to be careful what we find pleasure in that may seem harmless. We have to be careful of the things we substitute our it for, that although may seem harmless on the surface, where that could lead us to. Number 7, and this is one I'll just go on and tell you that I struggle with, especially not always. I haven't always struggled with it. I will say I have struggled with this all of 2022 and so far into January of 2023. Number 7 is sign that you are spiritually mature. You are joyful. That's been a struggle for me. All too often, being stressed out, reserved, and even unhappy are seen as status symbols. The hidden message is this: if you're busy and stressed out, you must be important. If you have no problems, you must either have no responsibilities or you're lazy. Bryn Brown, in her book Daring Greatly, calls it forbidding joy, and I think I have been stuck in forbidding joy for about a year now, and trying to get out of that, and I believe that I get through that season. But I just wanted to share that with you all tonight, and like I said, some of these I feel like I'm doing pretty decent on, and some of them I'm struggling with. So if those past ones that I said that I was doing pretty good on, if those are ones you struggle with, and say, hey, how are you doing that and having success? And just like this one, number 7, you are joyful. That's one I'm struggling with a little bit. So if you're just an always a joyous person, come up, give me some tips. But anyway, in her book Daring Greatly, she calls it forbidding joy, or their paradoxical dread that clamps down on momentary joyfulness. So like I'll get a momentary burst of joy, and then it's whoosh. And what in her book, it makes a lot of sense, because it's commonly referred to by the phrase waiting for the other shoe to drop. You know what I'm talking about? And so I find myself feeling like that, and thinking that when I get those bouts of joy, that feeling of creep in is like, okay, you're waiting for that other shoe to drop.
That's just devil talking.
Yeah. We're we're afraid of celebrating joy in our lives, either because we're afraid it will be taken away, or because we feel unworthy of our joy. Foreboding joy, according to Brown, is our way of minimalizing our vulnerability to disappointment. How can someone be and this is me, I think, right now. How can someone be disappointed when they are in a state of perpetual disappointment? So I think a lot of times when we struggle with having joy, we put ourselves into that perpetual disappointment, because if you're always in it, then you're not let down when you don't have it, you know. And the spiritually mature know that in order to combat foreboding joy, gratitude must also be present. Consistent joyfulness flow not from being naive or a lack of problems, but from practicing gratitude. The spiritually mature may not always be happy, but they are ever joyful. Number 8, this is one I'm good at. You practice personal responsibility. You probably heard me say it in other times that I've spoke. Living sober is a good life. It's a real life. It's not necessarily an easier life. It's just a better life. Before, you know, when I was drinking, it was, you know, you masked stuff, you hid from stuff, you diverted, you didn't take much responsibility. Being sober and being in recovery, part of that real life of recovery is you take everything head on, straight up, right in the face. Take it as it is, and take responsibility for your part, and you do the best you can to keep everything going. But if you're spiritually mature, you're more likely to engage in self-reflection as a regular practice. When I said I was good at this one, this is the one I'm actually too good at. And kind of funny, but kind of not funny, because I am too good at engaging in self-reflection as a regular practice, because I sit around and think about all the stuff I should have done different, would have done, could have done.
What ifs.
The what ifs, yeah. So,
Been there with you, brother.
So it's good to engage in self-reflection on a regular basis, but don't overdo it, because if you sit and think about it too much, you can beat yourself up. So having personal responsibility is a sign of spiritual maturity, and just try to not to take on more than what's actually yours. That's hard not to do as well. But number 9, you are dependable. I feel like I'm decent at this. Deanne could probably tell you the best, but dependability is a sign of spiritual maturity. A spiritually mature person knows that their word means everything. And I believe that both ways. If I tell you that I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. I mean, I may not get it done on time. I may make mistakes. I may do it the wrong way. But if I tell you, something, you can take that and kind of rest assured on that. On the flip side of that coin, a spiritual mature person knowing that their word means everything. So when I give somebody my word, I want you to believe that. On the flip side of that coin, when you tell me something, I take that literally, and it's not that this part is, probably doesn't have anything to do with spiritual maturity. It's just how I'm wired, and because I've heard the end, you know, tell other people, family, friends, or whatever. It's like, you told him that. He's going to take you of what you said, and I don't know. That's just the way I am. And so, if you're like that, I'm a very literal person, both ways.
I'm not.
You know, dependable people, they are seldom quick to take on new commitments. If you're taking on every commitment that pops up, that's going to get you worn out. Be seldom quick to take on new commitments, but take time to discern whether it is consistent with your values and if there is time and energy to devote to something new. I think fairly well at that. I don't rush into much. I have to think about it, pray about it, talk about it, size it up, calculate it.
Overthink it.
Yeah, exactly. And number 10, you are this of the ones that I struggle with on this list of 10 signs of spiritual maturity. This last one, number 10, is by far the one that I struggle with the most. Number 10 is you are at peace with what you cannot change.
It's good to have goals.
What's that?
It's good to have goals.
Now, with that said, anybody want me to repeat that? Number 10, sign of spiritual maturity. You are at peace with what cannot be changed. I struggle with that mightily. Now, with that said, if something, you know, just happens in the environment and nature and job and life and whatever, if it just, something just happens, you know, you have a flat tire, or I got a bunch of them. If it's something I had no control over bringing that to be, I had no, you know, it just happened without me. I didn't do anything to cause it. It just happened. But I can't change it. I'm good with that. I am. I'm good with it. I didn't have anything to do with it. I can't change it. Move on. No problem. Where I have the, or if it's, or even if it's someone else, if another person does something, if I can't change it, no problem. Because, you know, we all learn in recovery, you can't change other people. So if it's things that happen that I can't change, that I didn't have anything to do with getting them that way, not a big deal. If it's somebody that does something and I can't do anything about it, can't change it, not a problem. Where it's a problem for me is when it's of my own making. Something that I have done, a decision that I've made, a chain of events that I have set into place that is now a reality. It's in stone, and I can't change it. That bothers me. When it's of my own making and I can't change it, that's tough. So, there's your 10 signs of spiritual maturity. I hope you have more check marks than X marks, but,
Grade each other's tests.
Except that we cannot change.
we're gonna pass it around. But anyway, again, thank you all for coming. That's, all I've got tonight, and, keep coming back and stay connected. So, thank you all.